Three different institutions appeared before the committee today. Officials from PricewaterhouseCoopers as well as KPMG, who were receivers in the takeover of the 7 banks, as well as the newly established bank, Consolidated Bank. Well, even before the proceedings kicked in, Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu was around for the sitting. He had an interaction with the media, and he raised concerns about the loss of jobs and demanded firmer government action to deal with it.
I'm particularly concerned about loss of jobs and whether or not there will be capacity to pay severance award. What happens to the wards and children of the affected persons as school reopens? What is it that the government of Ghana can do to find new life to those institutions as possible? Don't forget that the US did it when they had a financial crisis. The state came in. Let's see what role the state of Ghana can play. I generally do not think that we've handled this matter properly. Thank you.
Well, the issue of job losses dominated the conversation. One disclosure that came up is that with the Consolidated Bank, for example, they have indicated they currently have 193 branches that they took over from the 5 collapsed banks. They would go ahead and close down 98 of them and run the rest, but they were unable to give firm disclosures on how many staff will be dismissed eventually.
We asked the question of the number of jobs that they expect to cut, and they said they are still in the process of rationalizing the platform they want to use, and that will determine where they will go. What we heard from them was the number of branches that they would maintain. As of now, they have 191, and they've come to the determination that they will keep 93.
Well, you recall that MP for Bogatanga Central, Isaac Adongo, boycotted yesterday's sitting and described what is being done here as a cover-up and something that will lead nowhere. Chairman of the committee, Makasbe Abwa, says they've allowed that matter to rest and they won't go back to it again.
The minority leader, the majority leadership, and I think we should let sleeping dogs lie. To the extent that the committee has converged again today to continue with our work, I think there are no issues outstanding.
The minority MP leading their side on this committee, Fifi Kwete, says a lot of progress has been made in terms of getting a fairer understanding of what exactly led to the collapse of the banks following the 2-day sitting. The probe lasted virtually the whole day from around 10 a.m. until 5 p.m. It will all come to an end on Friday, and then a decision on what next will be taken. From Parliament House in Accra, my name is Joseph Opokugapo.
And as you heard, the Parliament's Finance Committee continued its inquest into the banking crisis. It met KPMG and PricewaterhouseCoopers in day 2 of the hearing. Joining me on AM Talk now is Theophilus Tetechai, former Member of Parliament for Ablekuma Central, and Karen Greater Accra Regional Secretary of the NDC. And Anthony Effa is MP for Esikuma Odobing Brakwa constituency. He's a member of the Finance Committee, former Risk Management Director, Fidelity Bank. Good morning to you, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Yeah.
How are you?
Yeah. I saw you congratulating him. He's the Regional Secretary of the NDC.
A while ago, about 2 months ago, we met on a program. He indicated his intention to contest.
Okay.
But I haven't met him to congratulate him for the victory.
Okay. So, you know, now that he's out of Parliament, you can support him with some funding so he can do his work as Regional Secretary. But you are with the committee that is currently sitting. Your sitting will end tomorrow.
Yes.
Take us through who appeared first. There was KPMG, there was PricewaterhouseCoopers.
No, we actually set ourselves up to meet on 3 days. So the first day was really the governor of the central bank. We met with his deputies and then some of his directors. The legal department was also represented.
We're told the AG.
Yes, was also there, yeah. And then he was followed by the Deputy Minister for Finance. The substantive minister is out of the country, So he detailed one of his deputies by him to stay behind and then discuss with us what actions the involvement of the finance ministry in all this. So on the second day, then we decided to meet the receivers. We had Pricewaterhouse and we also had KPMG coming to tell us how far they've gone with the work that they were assigned. In the case of KPMG, they first of all were administrators, official administrators of one of the banks, Unibank, and then now they have assumed the role of receivers to collect, to realize some of the assets. Today we are meeting the National Insurance Commission, and then we also meet the Securities and Exchange Commission. The reason for that is that these banks that have gone under have asset management companies, and there were some we call it intra-party or intra-business relationships, and these are supervised by the SIC and the NIC. So we want to establish to what extent these subsidiaries, if we may call them, were exposed or contributed to the fall or collapse of all these banks. So it's actually a 3-day program, and like you rightly said, we are closing that today.
Okay. I'll come back to you so that we talk more about KPMG and PricewaterhouseCoopers' appearance and some of the things they said in terms of job loss and the benefits that workers would receive. But Mr. Techa, you've been following the conversations. I don't know where you want to, particularly on yesterday's sitting.
Well, let me say good morning to our viewers. The Parliament of Ghana is doing its statutory duty, and let me commend the committee for taking up this.
Even though they are doing it in camera?
Well, it is better than it wasn't done at all. At least the committee's work can never be hidden. Because these are people that we've given our trust, and we expect that they will do the right things. And I have all the confidence that the finance committee and then is it the finance and is it only the finance?
Yeah, this is only the finance
committee. Yeah, is going to do its work diligently, ensure that all the due diligence processes are taken on board to ensure that the report that will be coming out will be something that will be very credible, will stand the test of time. And I believe with the leadership, they will be able, because if you look at the caliber of members forming that committee, they have all what it takes to even manage the Bank of Ghana and other financial institutions in this country. So I believe that they will do the work as is expected of them.
Can I ask, did Mr. Dongo sit through the sitting yesterday?
No, Mr. Dongo did not attend the sitting.
Okay. So you were 20 or 21?
Yeah, almost everybody attended. The chairman actually announced that out of a total membership of 25, 20 of us were present.
Okay.
And then when Mr. Isaac Adongo walked out, we had 19. Okay. But the 19 were committed to the assignment.
Okay.
So it took us about a month to prepare for this meeting, trying to gather documentation. Even the finance committee met twice before meeting the governor and the related parties, the other stakeholders. So just to plan what documentation we needed, how we to go about it, even whom to invite.
Okay.
Okay. So a lot of work actually had gone behind the scenes before we came to the committee.
Mr. Adongo didn't show, but did he explain, or this is from the first hearing? The fact that he wasn't satisfied, you wanted him to do a rubber stamp.
Of course, that I think was a personal statement.
Okay.
Which
so you don't expect to see him today?
No, he's a member of the committee. He's not been sanctioned to stay out of the committee, except that the committee cannot compel any member to attend any of the sittings.
Okay.
So he's doing what he thinks is right for him.
I catch you there.
Exactly so. As a member of the committee, he has the right to state his opinion. And for him, he thinks the setup will not inure to the benefit of the good people of this country. And as such, he is demonstrating that indifference by not being part of the committee work. That notwithstanding, let's see what the committee is going to come up with, and then we compare it with the decision that he has taken. And at the end of the day, we'll know whether the decision he took was right or the decision he took was wrong. For now, I believe that nobody should chastise him for demonstrating his constitutional mandate. He has that right. And the committee has no right to even compel him to be part of the meeting.
Absolutely.
No.
Okay.
They have what it takes to continue with the meeting. But around this brouhaha, I have had personal issues with how we are approaching what is happening. In this country, when the laws are being violated, the people or those within the higher bracket who violate the laws, they rather turn around to be the ones supervising the laws to be adhered to. And what am I talking about? For me, personally, I've never been happy with the role the Bank of Ghana played in this matter. We wouldn't have gotten to this point as a country if officials who have been assigned roles and responsibilities within these banks did their work to the best of their abilities. And I was expecting that if we are to even crack the whip, it should have been the Bank of Ghana. They should have first suffered the brunt of investigation from investigative bodies that we have in this country. But you see...
But you know that Yoko is undertaking some investigations, right?
Well, but I know
from my conversations yesterday from other members of the committee, we learned on the show that the committee is interested in knowing who is being investigated by what body. So very soon they are going to supply them with the lists.
Yeah, we want to know. And it is the right of citizens to know what is happening within our banking, especially within the Bank of Ghana. Who and who are being investigated.
So for you, KPMG, PricewaterhouseCoopers, not necessarily should have been the Bank of Ghana.
They also have to be investigated.
Because
look, let me tell you something. There have been situations where audit organizations have conducted audits, and at the end of the day, the people that they audited have been able to win cases against them because something went wrong in the auditing. So for me, KPMG cannot be absolved from what is happening. You see, if you have people who were part of the investigation, now being part of people managing those same institutions, me, I see that as a conflict of interest situation. And nobody is talking about that. You asked me to go and investigate the people, some of the people who were involved in the investigation are now those who are now running those banks. It is a clear case of conflict of interest.
Okay. Well, did that come up yesterday?
Well, I think it's important for us to wait for the finance committee to come to finish its job and come out. But some of the points,
did this point come up yesterday?
I'll tell you what came up yesterday. Yesterday, the two receivers, PwC responsible for UT and Capital, and then KPMG responsible for Unibank, Royal, and the other three in the category of 5. They showed us with evidence what actually had happened. And if I have to
leading to the collapse.
Yes. And if I have to cite one or two without making reference to specific banks, the banking software that one of the banks, and for a big one, of course, uses, allowed managers of the bank to generate credits that were not backed by value. What does that mean? For instance, I could decide that today I needed 2 million cedis and these were 100 million. These are big monies. I needed 500 million cedis. I don't put in any money, but the system will generate a 500 million deposit, as if I have placed 500 million deposit in the bank. Then I would fix it. I'll invest it as fixed deposits.
Wow.
Again in the bank, at an interest to the bank. And that becomes my money.
When in reality you haven't invested nothing.
Not a CD, but we work around the system, the banking software, to generate, and these are series, not one, not two, so many of them. And we have the details from the KPMG reports that individual managers and directors and shareholders were able to generate deposits for themselves that were non-existent, and then invested the same amounts and earn interest on them.
When did this revelation come up? Was it before the banks went down, or this was after?
You see, when KPMG was at the time an administrator, yes, an official administrator, when they were the administrators of one of these banks, then they found out that, oh, indeed, what we're carrying, or what even the central banking, wasn't the complete picture. They needed to look at what was happening. Because
so this was when they were working on behalf of the Bank of Ghana?
Yes, okay, as managers of the bank.
Okay.
And they came out with revelations that some of the deposits that were recorded were actually didn't have value. You also would see that there were inter-party, these are technical terms, but there were interrelated party transactions, which were also not disclosed, to the tune of about 3.7 billion cedis, hidden. But these were loans. And I have a list of all the related parties, companies that benefited.
So these are friends, families?
These were institutions that were connected to this specific bank I'm talking about.
Okay, but are they related in terms of sister companies?
That is what we mean by related party in the Act.
So I guess that's the reason you're calling, you're meeting the people that you're meeting today.
We want information. In fact, we made it clear, and the chairman said, I'm sure you have the record, that we were not going to prosecute anybody because it's outside our mandate. But we were doing
you have the AG sitting right there throughout the hearing.
But it's not for us to prosecute. Ours is to get first-hand information, because we all had heard, and then social media was telling us everything that was happening, bits and pieces. But we want to hear from the governor what happened. And then the governor told us. We wanted to hear from the Minister of Finance, what do you know about these collapses? And then they told us. We are asking the receivers, now receivers, previously as managers, what did you find when you were assigned that responsibility? And they are giving us serious revelations of breaches, serious breaches, and the amounts are in the billions. So much to the extent that if we were to pass judgments, I'm sure it will be prejudicial to the
So let me bring Mr. Techechai in and ask, with what we have, what do you expect that we will do with it?
Well, for me, it will not be complete.
We've been pushing for prosecution. You have evidence here. You still say it won't be complete.
It will not be complete if the owners of those banks are also not being questioned. The rule of law, when we talk of good governance.
Even natural justice.
Natural justice, exactly. It is very fair that you give opportunity to both sides to be heard. And that is one area I wasn't happy with.
But this is an institution. Must you necessarily hear from shareholders?
You need to. You need to. Because of the complexity of events.
When the evidence that you have is telling you one thing, you still want to hear from
let me
just come in on the same subject matter. Now, some of these things that we are saying, the directors and shareholders have admitted to the receivers. Because when you say, for example, that we've seen these credits, it's in your name, where is the evidence that you deposited funds?
How was the admission done? Because we've heard, for instance, the Auditor General coming out with revelations before the Public Accounts Committee, and you hear other people come forward to say that I have a response to that.
Exactly.
What you see is just what was observed, but I can explain it. And I've got documents to show.
Let us understand that this does not take away the responsibility of the courts listening, because somebody is going to prosecute. We are not there. We're just fact-finding. At the prosecution, they'll be heard.
So what it means is you didn't consider, in fact, you ruled out shareholders and directors coming before the committee. It wasn't part of the plan.
No, we are dealing with the banks and the managers of these banks. Currently, what happened? We want to understand. We are not going to the extent of saying that.
But I think his point is, why not also understand from the people who managed those facilities before these receivers came in? I think that's the point you're making.
Yeah,
right?
You see, in any auditing, after you've finished auditing, you meet with those that you came to audit, okay, and then you put your findings before them. If they have any answer or anything that they can supply that will either validate or will not be able to validate their findings, and then before you close that audit, okay, my worry is that that was not done.
But how about the fact that he says some of them admitted to some of the revelations made?
But you also responded by saying that these same people have come out to say they even didn't see even the how do you call it, the draft report, because they could have answered some of the queries that have
so back to the question,
raised.
what can we do with what's
that is why
was revealed
that
yesterday?
is why I have a very big challenge, that we are not allowing the natural justice to take its course in this matter.
Okay.
And for me, it is very, very unfair.
Okay, so what what can we do? I'm not talking to you just as a member of the committee now. I'm talking to you as a member, a representative of the people. What can we do as a nation with what came before you yesterday?
We need to clarify one thing, that the work of the receivers or at the time managers was not to conduct an audit, and they have said that in their disclaimer. I am privy to the report. That's why I'm saying that. So they did not conduct an audit. They worked according to the terms of reference given to them by Bank of Ghana, but in
which
relation
is still
to,
one-sided.
Excuse me. In relation to the Banking Act 930, so they were seeing whether the banks involved were complying with the BOG or the laws of the state regarding banking supervision. That is all. And they have said that because of the extent, the limitation on the work they did, they were not going to express an opinion. And that's why I said I would not be judgmental here to say anybody.
And I appreciate that, but just a quick one. Did they also talk about the failed role of the Bank of Ghana in this?
Yes. In fact, I was going through the reports. I didn't complete it.
Okay, please do.
The Bank of Ghana, the governor of the central bank said there was complicity on the part of Bank of Ghana.
But I want to hear from the receivers make that point. Did they make it yesterday?
The BOG, you see, we are meeting series of people, and everybody has a responsibility. The Bank of Ghana governor has oversight, so he gave us general comments without even the specifics, how much was taken, how much of that was abused. But then, in making that statement or that presentation to us, he said that Bank of Ghana itself was complicit as an institution.
Okay,
because
but I'm asking a specific question. KPMG, PricewaterhouseCoopers, do they also talk about the failure of the supervision division or the Bank of Ghana?
They were not doing a complete. You see, when you're given a mandate in terms of reference, you work according to that, and then your deliverable, the report, should just cover exactly what you were asked to do. So what they were to do was to find out the financial state of these banks and the potential impact on the banking industry. And if I must give you some revelations, you'll be surprised.
Please do.
So, for instance, there is a situation where one of the banks went to Exim Bank to borrow on behalf of 2 Ghanaian companies. In fact, one is even BOST. $25 million was approved for the bank to be on lent to these 2 institutions. And the money was diverted by the directors. The 2 companies, I would not like to mention the other because it's a private company, but the BOST is public, so I like to say that. We're not even aware that there was some
money
process
had gone
borrowed and the money, they were not notified of the receipt of the funds. $25 million.
But did these 2 companies make a request to this particular bank?
There was no request. So at the extent of what we are finding, that's why we don't have, I'm saying that I can't be judgmental because even those who did the job,
but you see,
didn't have that
for us as ordinary citizens, the more revelations that we see, I mean, the more rots speaks to how Bank of Ghana also failed drastically. Because if all these were going on and a receiver came in, how many months? 6 months in one of the cases and was able to see all this when Bank of Ghana has been there for like forever and they failed to realize all these things, then it's a failure totally of the Bank of Ghana.
Bank of Ghana, the governor who supervises BOG admitted that Bank of Ghana was complicit in all these things.
So why did they decide to transfer people to different departments when really they should be prosecuting? If you intend to prosecute somebody, you shouldn't be transferring them.
No, listen. When all these things, you know that it's still ongoing. Even the report of the receivers says they are ongoing. They still are doing some work. These people have been cited. Those and the statement that is recorded by the finance committee coming from the governor, and if I have read some of his press releases, that all those people found culpable in these things, first of all, will be subject to the rules of their engagement with the central bank, and secondly, when necessary, referred to the law courts to be dealt with. So they have not been excused.
Mr. Tetechai, haven't we waited for this action for a bit too long for it to happen?
The very day the news broke, the first comment I made was that officials of the Bank of Ghana should be held liable. And I'm even surprised that up to today, none of them is before the courts. And they are rather in charge of the cleansing or the cleaning process.
And we heard, by the way, I heard from a very reliable source that there are some of them who have actually even resigned and taken their benefits as workers of the Bank of Ghana.
Well, that's
knowing what is likely to come.
That's not confirmed in the reports. I'm speaking to the reports that came before the finance committee.
That's why I said I have reliably been informed. I'm not talking about the work of the committee. But this is something that is real, that is true.
Yeah, okay. I don't know about that. I can't speak to that. But what I'm saying is that all those who are involved will be punished. And please, when that's not for me to say, because we will not prosecute. We are coming out, we are understanding the issues now. Revelations upon revelations, people.
But you see, as representatives of the people, understanding the issue alone is not enough.
And we
want to see people punished, and we want you to put the pressure.
Please,
because as an ordinary person who are going to steal.
Listen. We are now working. We started 2 days ago. Today is the 3rd day. So we cannot, in the middle of it, make recommendations. No. We need to listen to the parties, the institutions that we've invited. And I'm saying to you that even the central bank governor has said that the central bank and some people within the central bank are culpable, and so the law will take its course. But that's not what we are doing. That's outside our own mandate. The people who manage the banks and cause all these difficulties, they'll also be sanctioned. Now, what is happening? And yesterday, the finance committee made this point very strongly, that KPMG and Pricewaterhouse are working, but they are not telling the world what is happening. There are some suits. Look, the Capital Bank, the UT Bank, there have been some suits in the court. Nobody knows about them. But is that
their responsibility? Shouldn't that be directed at the Bank of Ghana? Because after all, they are working on behalf of the Bank of Ghana.
Information.
They owe us a daily brief, possibly.
They are giving us information, and they report to Bank of Ghana. Now, the actions that have been taken are not reported for the public to know. We have had the privilege of speaking to them, and we have requested that let us know who else is in court on these matters, what actions. And you know, when they go to court, they'll be heard. They'll have representatives to also defend. So that process hasn't come. We said the public is crying about it. We are all concerned. But what does Parliament know about these things? Parliament ordinarily would have to wait for somebody to make a statement on the floor of Parliament. I'm sure my brother knows. For the Speaker to refer it to a committee. This is a situation where Parliament is not in session. We are on recess. But the Finance Committee deemed it proper that let us get together, get our reports, and then persuade the Speaker to listen to us. It's going to come with recommendations. Yesterday, I was excited when I saw the minority leader at the Finance Committee meeting. He had so many engagements, yet he spent time. And he made his comments. I'm sure we heard him about the staffing issues, matters, and all that. But he also said to us that let us forget about the previous day's event, the walkout, and the confusion that emanated, and everything that is all over.
He specifically said that.
He said that. And it was not he alone who did that. We had all the leadership of Parliament agreeing that we should let bygones be bygones, so that we concentrate on the work we are doing for Parliament and Ghana.
What, as members, were you peeved? This had nothing to do with you. This is one individual member who thought that.
Well, yes, you see, I wouldn't want us to extend the discussion to that behavior.
I appreciate it. It's because you went there. That's why I'm going there. I want more clarification.
We said from the beginning that nobody can compel him to attend, and nobody can stop him. Assuming he decided to attend today's meeting, nobody will say, we will not allow you to go. Okay. But you see, sometimes we want some sense of togetherness, consensus, as working as a committee.
I get that. Away from that, though, because I also want to move away from that. You're a banker, Mr. Tetecha, please come in. Then I'll come to the fact that...
I still want to hammer on the issue of conflict of interest. Honorable, you are still attending to the committee sittings. This issue should be very, very hammered at. We want to know from the Bank of Ghana why some individuals within these same institutions that investigated the matter are now in charge of running these banks.
If you are specific, I'm sure I can raise that question today.
I'm sure KPMG is an example, right?
It is very, very key, because you see, if we continue to do that, then as a country, the good governance that we are all talking about, we are not adhering to the standards. Why should people who have interest investigate me, and then those same people are made to what? Be those running those same banks? It is never done anywhere.
Do you appreciate that?
And I want the committee to look at that.
Yeah, that point, I'm sure we can still finalize. But then they were engaged as managers, and then they came out with the real situation. Sometimes it's safer to get them to, as it were, run it for some time. And their mandate, we asked them that, how long is it going to take you to deal with the situation? As receivers, they are no longer going to be the managers to make the day-to-day decisions of the board and management. Now, the new bank, the Consolidated Bank of Ghana, is now the active bank. But there are remnants, residual cases to handle. And the Consolidated Bank would not like to engage itself with all this. Yesterday, when we looked at the financial statement that they presented to Parliament, there was a clear omission of loans as one of the assets in Consolidated Bank's pro forma balance sheet. So I asked that question. Why is it that loans are significant assets of banks, yet you have a zero? You didn't even report it. And they said...
They didn't inherit the loans?
Yes. No, they didn't, because the quality of the loan as we speak, for all the 5 banks, on average, about 83% of these have all gone bad. And out of the 83...
When you say they've gone bad, please explain.
Let me explain. You see, the central bank has its own measurements for classifying loans. If you took a loan it is presumed that the customer would pay and make regular payments, monthly, quarterly, or as scheduled. Now, when the time is due to pay and the company does not meet that obligation, and then it extends to about 90 days, which means if he's missed about 3 months of interest payment and principal, then it means that you should start watching that that account is likely to go bad. When we say it's bad, it means that make provisions just in case it doesn't come at all. Then you have made sufficient provision to meet that risk or potential danger that is coming. Beyond 90 days, you have to make a provision of about 25% if it's up to 182 days. So Bank of Ghana has a classification that guides all the banks. Some of these borrowings, or shall I say lendings to themselves, has gone beyond 1 year.
So what, we can't take it?
I'm explaining the first part of it. So when you do not, or when the loans are not paid within the bands that the central bank has made, you make provisions to the point that when they are 1 year old and nothing has happened on account, then the Bank of Ghana insists that you have to make full provisioning. What that means is that assume that there are fundamental challenges and you are not going to get your money. So that it makes an impact on your profits. Because you are not getting the money, yet you are accruing interest as if the loan is performing. All right. Now,
so to the second part, are you just sitting down and saying, yeah,
no,
it's gone bad?
That is why we say that the Consolidated Bank is taking over some assets to enable it to run. But those that are difficult accounts, the receiver should deal with it. So you come after you and come after me, look for our assets, and then you cannot compel a sale except that you did evaluation. So we have reserve prices. You don't go to the market and say that I have your property because you owe me 1 million cedis. I'm going to sell the property for 1 million. Maybe it's worth 3 million. And so if the bank went ahead to sell at 1 million because you owed 1 million cedis, the bank could be culpable of.
I have a question.
Yeah.
These receivers, managers, but let's just call them auditors, before this event, had they done some work for any of these banks?
Yes.
As in audit them?
Yes, but the banks, the auditors that were mentioned, I think it's the entire accounting industry. They are also feeling what is happening.
Shouldn't they be indicted in all this?
So there was a question by one of the members, who's also a chartered accountant, whether these have been reported to the ICA, the ICA, chartered accountant. And they say yes, a formal report by the auditing firm or the accountancy body itself has been reported. Now, there are some of them who want more business as auditors, and the central bank has declined to approve the jobs for them. So it means that if you did not do it right, you cannot apply to continue to be auditors. But then their licenses could only be revoked by the ICA, the association that they belong to. So a lot of complicated things are happening. What is not happening is that those leading this effort are not telling us anything. So they are working as if it is for them to do it.
Is it one of the things that are you pushing for them to be briefing us, to be telling us? So, what was their feedback? What was the response?
They have to do it because by their mandate, they are supposed to even do monthly reports and 90-day reporting to the central bank. Now the central bank then will have to publish it on their website or have press conferences, as the case may be, for the public to know. But the involvement of Parliament or the Finance Committee, like I said, is to seek for information, first-hand information, and these are the institutions that will give us the information. We would, at the end of the day, come with a report, and like the teacher
even
said,
that is a recommendation. The House chooses to adopt or not, right?
The Finance Committee cannot, because we are working in the interests of the state. We cannot withhold our report.
But your report is public.
Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
So we're going to
Mr.
make
Chan
it public,
make a point.
except that we just wanted to have it closed door. But then you see the good thing
so
about
that you
it,
polish some of the revelations.
No. We know there are two. We have membership. We are all together.
Oh, but when the two sides decide to be one,
we are speaking to the public.
There's nothing anybody can do.
No, even the committee, when we have done our job, we're not going to be judgmental. We want to understand the issues. Ultimately, we want to see how we can sharpen regulation such that these things may not may be minimized and will not reoccur to the extent. In fact, if we were to read the findings in detail, I'll tell you that seriously, it is not that the banks have gone down, where people did things wrong, intentionally did things wrong, suppressing numbers, doing non-disclosures to Bank of Ghana, refusing even at a point. Auditors who were auditing the accounts of one particular bank had to pull out because they were not getting the information and they were not cooperating. It got to the point where, indeed, like the president said, we were not competitive and eventually we're going to go down.
Mr. Chai, you wanted to make a point.
This report will not be complete if the current workers who are being forced out of their jobs is not looked into. I said some time ago that if it were to be in other jurisdictions, the current Bank of Ghana governor should have resigned. You see,
how is he to be blamed for this?
Let me tell you something. You see, when public officials communicate to the citizenry, they should be very sincere to us. You know, before the takeover, we were told that there was not going to be job losses. Okay? Now, this was
at all, or in the immediate aftermath of the takeover.
Yeah.
And even the takeover was even not complete, and people had already lost their jobs. For me, it is it hurts me that public officials will look into our eyes and tell us things, and then within the twinkle of an eye, they do otherwise. And for me, I want His Excellency the President to say something about what is happening. Because look,
he spoke in Rwanda, and if we want to interpret what he said, he's in full support of what is happening.
That means he's in support of the workers that has been taken off.
Isn't that a natural thing that would happen? I mean, imagine if Unibank was on this stretch, and Beige was also here. Sovereign was also on the streets. Yeah. It means that you have three branches on the same stretch. You can't. That is why you can't have three consolidated on the same road.
My school, our motto is Join Shekan. You understand it? When you are taking decisions, you look into the future. Okay, how was that decision taken before he came to the press? Is that okay? If there was going to be minimal, maybe entrenchment of workers, why not the governor tell us? Okay, and even questions were asked. Are you sure people are not going to lose their jobs? You see, but they thought they were doing a PR thing to calm the banking sector, to enable them move into the banks. Okay, but we shouldn't treat our people that way. And for me, His Excellency the President, he's the one who appointed him. He's the one who appointed him.
So how do you fire the person under whose supervision we're getting to know all this?
They were all complicit in it. Since he came in, hasn't he launched a bank? What due diligence was done before that bank was commissioned? So they are all complicated in this matter. The Bank of Ghana governor cannot take himself out of this mess. It means his oversight role was also not properly done.
I'll give you 2 minutes each to talk about other matters, but I wanted to ask you, as a former banker, once a banker, always a banker.
I'm still a banker.
Okay. Is this not happening? What has been reviewed? Is this not still happening in other banks? Or we're saying the rest are angels?
Yes, I'm happy, and I was going to go that for the concluding remarks. Now, but let me just do a little explanation about the HR bit. We know Gami and Gami. Gami and Gami is a reputable HR consultancy firm. And I'm happy to say that they are involved with all the 7 banks. And some decisions have been made as with severance pay packages. It's been agreed from the basic lowest paid to the highest paid, excluding some where there are concerns.
This was something you learned yesterday?
Yes. Yeah, so Gami was there and to support the two receivers because he's responsible for the first two banks, UT and Capital, and the human.
Who appointed them?
It's Bank of Ghana. And then, I think the name is quite popular.
Yes,
Honorable.
Austin Gami.
Austin Gami.
Yes.
And then he was there with his team. And then for the 5. So the HR issues are more or less under his advice. And the Bank of Ghana is listening to him. And he was happy yesterday to tell us that even as at yesterday afternoon, we had a meeting to conclude the payment severance awards. In terms of job loss, I think let us be sincere.
It's inevitable.
It's inevitable. And what is happening is that those banks that these employees work for have gone down already. So technically they are not employed. But there was a window of 60 days which was provided for them to continue under Consolidated Bank. Now there are 10 regional centers where all existing staff have to reapply. Now they have to resign because their contracts have terminated. But on the day, say on 1st of August, that's when technically the engagement should have ended. But the government said, let's do another 60 days so that you work for Consolidated Bank. But they have to regularize your appointments. And so this process has all been set up. It's been supervised by Gami. So job loss is inevitable. But as to how many people are going home, we don't know. And yesterday, even the CEO of Consolidated Bank did not give us a specific number. What we're sure of is that some of the branches will go because they seem to be close together, and so it will not help. Now, the question you asked, could you just remind me, because
what has happened? Is it still not happening in the other banks?
Yes, very good. I'm happy. Look, there were 36 banks before this 7 collapsed. So it means we'll still have about 29 that are active. Now, these 7 banks, let's say, have been replaced by 1 bank, Consolidated Bank, so we still have 30 banks. So the banking industry is not in distress as ordinarily we would say. The whole industry is not in distress. We still have 29, say Consolidated is new, and you may not want
But it's the local banks that are in distress.
I think your question was general first.
Yes.
Now, we still have 29 or 30 banks that are active. And these 5 banks, or the 7 banks put together, account for 9.8% of the banking industry's size.
9.8%.
Market share. So that's below 10%. So the 90% are still active and working. So it's not that it's a bad story. In fact, what we got to know from our hearings is that now there's a big interest in banking. People are desirous of getting banking license because they see that the systems are going to work now.
Now?
Yes.
I said local business people who want to own banks, or these are international?
That distinction has not been made. But you know the president's position about this, that we should have indigenous banks in Ghana. Who the investors are at this point, not disclosed. But it is the element of renewed interest in owning banks.
Is this not just paper talk?
Oh,
just something to, water down everything that's happening.
Sorry, when the central bank governor speaks at a committee of parliament, let us not say that it is not true. When the Minister of Finance comes to the Finance Committee to talk, give us information, he's not there to deceive anybody.
Okay.
So let's take this serious. But so the existing banks are fine, and even among them, some still have not met the capital requirement because there were 9 at the time of the AQR, the asset quality review. 9 that were shaky. 7 are down because 2 of them were not rehabitable. Okay. Now there are still 2, which the Bank of Ghana is monitoring.
They haven't met the requirements.
The capital requirement, but the indication is that they will be able to meet it by the time that the end of the year.
By December.
So let's have a lot of confidence that at least 90% of the banking industry is intact.
Okay.
And then we are hoping that with the Consolidated Bank is not going to have it easy. We saw all that yesterday.
Because you were asking for their incorporation certificates and things like
those
that.
things are quite routine. Getting the incorporation certificate, getting minimum capital in place. We saw.
But have they met the minimum capital of 400?
More, 450.
Oh, they've gone beyond as consolidated.
Yes.
Okay.
So 450.
Whose money is that, by the way?
It's the central bank.
So it's you and I, all of us.
Yeah.
Yes. So you see why this happened. It said so that we have at least that indigenous bank, Consolidated Bank, still be in the system. The other things that we see
is it a profitable business? Is that one of the, because if we put our money in there, is it profitable? Consolidated.
Consolidated. Like I said to you that it is new. That's why I even discounted it and said let's assume we have 29 banks. They are now putting a few things together. They don't have a board. Which board we are hoping that I understand by close of week today or when the president arrives, we'll have a board. So they don't have a board. They can't spend capital on capital.
All right.
So there's a lot of work to do. And we also noticed, looking at the numbers that they brought to us, that apart from the capitalization of 450 million cedis, which has been injected, and we saw the evidence, and they also admitted and gave us all the references, account numbers and all that. That still will not be enough to meet the gap of 7.1 or so billion that they've inherited from the 5 banks. There's still a gap.
All right.
And so the government
will continue our conversations.
The government in trying to resolve this will have to raise a bond again at your expense and my expense.
Yeah, that has also come up.
And the question, there are so many questions still to be answered.
We will have to continue. Mr. Tesachai, just end it for us. Unfortunately, we couldn't go to the other areas of PPE and CTN.
No problem. The most important thing is Parliament should do its work to its best ability to ensure that whatever report will come out will be in the best interest of the country. But I want my colleague to also to be very proactive, especially on the various committees. If you look at other jurisdictions, we don't wait for the public to cry before we come to our aid. Once institutions that are within our mandate are in some form of trouble or creating problems for the citizenry, Parliament should not wait. Various committees should be up to the task, so that we'll keep institutions on their toes.
Yeah.
I quite remember what I did to VLA.
Yes.
And today it saved the country.
Your last days.
Yes. So that is my appeal to Honorable.
I think it's well taken. We will continue the meeting today. And then hopefully we'll give ourselves some time to verify what we have and then come out. The chairman of the committee has said that if it becomes necessary to invite any of these people again or any other people or persons, we would do that.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming as well. Stay with us. We're talking Roverman and Anklebo White's one-man concert, if you like. If you haven't watched it, well, there's another opportunity for those of us who missed last week to see it this weekend. We'll have that conversation on the show. We've got Showbiz, brought to us courtesy Awake Purified Water, and we've got our agenda as well. So still lots of things to come on the AM show.